Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Center for Teaching and Learning. I'm Marlo Daly Galliano, and I'm so excited that we have Kimberly Tolson and Louis Sylvester with us today to talk about games-based learning. I am going to start with introductions, and then I'll turn it over to them. So Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Emily. I'm new to the International Programs Office as of September. I do a lot in the International Programs Office, but hopefully this fall we're looking to open up our Bridge English Pathway program. So working with students that are ESL learners.
Great, thank you. Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle Ferguson. I'm the chair of the Humanities Division, and I teach Comm Arts as well.
Thanks. Marcy, are you there?
My name is Marcy Halpin. I'm in the Humanities Division. I also teach Communication Arts.
Thanks. Heidi?
Hi, I'm Heidi McMillan. I'm Justice Studies professor up in Coeur d'Alene.
Thanks. Rachel?
I'm Rachel, and I am in chemistry, and I am going to turn off my video because I'm going to eat lunch, and I don't want you to have to see that.
Very cool, thanks. I guess Jennifer?
I'm Jennifer Anderson in Humanities. I teach Publishing Arts and Creative Writing.
Presenters.
Yes, Kimberly Tolson. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and I kind of want to just set the foundation for games-based learning and for what we're going to do today with just a couple definitions. And then I'll do my games-based learning exercise, and then I will throw it over to Louis to do his for the second half.
And I'm Louis Sylvester.
And that's Louis Sylvester.
Nice to meet you.
We'll get to him in a minute.
Team Humanities over here.
Yes. Yeah, wearing our super cool humanities swag.
Oh, yeah.
So games-based learning includes using existing games in classrooms to meet course objectives. These games aren't designed by me, and they don't act as a framework for the whole course. So when I talk about games-based learning, I say this is a game that somebody else made, and I'm bringing it in my class, and I'm going to apply it in the way that makes the most sense to my lesson. So I incorporate games because they're dynamic and engaging, and I use games to facilitate a really memorable experience. So games-based learning offers students the chance to practice soft and hard skills in a way that other types of teaching and learning don't often provide. Unfortunately, there are some people who think games in the classroom means distraction or mindless fun, something you do when you didn't prepare a lesson or you've got nothing better to work on. But intentional games implementation can be a real credit to the class and for class morale. And if the instructor thoughtfully frames the use of the game, it can increase student engagement, knowledge retention, and skills practice. So what I want to do is share this game. It's called Just One. And I want to share two different ways that I use it. The first way I use Just One is in the English 103 writing workshop class. And I use it for a variety of reasons. It practices communication, clarity, critical thinking, cooperation, these are all the C words, creativity, and I threw in an A word, autonomy. Because what the game does is it asks players to give a one-word clue. We're all on the same team. We give a one-word clue that you write on this super cool dry erase easel. And there is one person who's trying to guess a word, and everybody is essentially trying to get them to guess that word. But this is the Goldilocks rule. You want to give a clue that's good enough to get them to guess the word. So let's say our word is egg. What words do you think you could write down to get me to say egg? Just
Ova.
ova. Okay. Wait, is ova a foreign language term for egg though? Is that,
Yeah.
you can't do that. That's
Oh.
against the rules.
Can you do hyphenated words?
If they are technically hyphenated, you can use them.
Hard boiled.
Okay. Hard
Hard-boiled
boiled.
Shell.
Shell.
Chicken. In the
Chicken.
chat.
Yeah, chicken. Benedict, maybe.
Ooh,
I don't know.
I don't know. I'd go with Arnold.
But if you're looking chicken shell and hard boiled, you might go, oh, that's okay.
Dozen.
Dozen. Perfect, right? Then I might say dirty. No. So the thing about it though is when you write down your word, you can't show your teammates. Now we're all together. It's a cooperative game. But you will ask the guesser to close their eyes when everyone's written down their word, kept a secret. You'll show each other your word. And if anybody has the same word as you put your clue down and you're not allowed to give that clue to the guesser. So that's what I'm saying is the Goldilocks clue. You want to give a clue that's specific enough and clear enough to get them to guess the word, but not the obvious go-to word, because if it's that one, people are probably going to think that too. And so there's just this really fine line with that communication, which of course encourages clarity and thought. I always call them get people in the ballpark. And then there are other clues that help you get the specifics. So it's like, big stuff and small stuff, the big concepts. But this is all about communication and it's all about creative thinking. So I would love to have someone try this out as the guesser. You want to be the guesser?
I'll be the first guesser since I've done this.
Okay. So what I've done for us here in the room is we can have the boards, but you can do this super easy with just grabbing a sheet of paper or a note card and then a pen, and you can write your clue and you can even type it in the chat bar. But, oh no, you can't type it in the chat bar because then everyone can see it. Unless you send it privately to us. Maybe you can do it that. Oh no, then you see the screen too. Never mind. Wait. I didn't think this through. You're gonna write your clue and then we'll all say everyone show it to the camera at the same time. Okay. So we are going to draw a random card for Louis. And you're not looking. Okay, so pick a number 1 to 5.
3.
Okay, so this is our word. This is the word.
Oh, okay.
That's the word. Oh, yes. 3, that middle one. Do we all see it?
Hang on.
Don't say it out loud.
Which one is it?
3.
The bottom one? 3?
3. The middle one.
Okay.
Okay, and you said no synonyms, right?
No, well, you can do synonyms. You can do one word. They can be proper nouns. They can be names. They can be hyphenated. They just can't be the same word as what's written here or any part of the word. And it can't be the same word in a different language. So everyone think about what you'd like to do.
What did you say about proper nouns?
I know.
You can have, I think we're all thinking the same. You can have proper nouns. You can have
Okay.
proper nouns, common nouns, anything you want. Descriptors, I mean, gosh, just about anything you want.
Okay.
And don't worry, if we have any illegal ones, I'll tell you to put your card down.
Does it matter which side I read it on?
You can see whichever side. There's a cute little lip that holds the card.
Oh,
So whenever you're the guesser, you just put it like this. It's really cool. So everyone can kind of see it.
That students really like these. And that's
Yeah. It creates that tactile engagement with the markers, the dry erase board. They love having it. They love picking their color. There's, 7 markers here. Louis is gonna fall asleep before he gives his talk.
So we're trying to think of something that no one else is gonna.
Yes.
right. that's the
Yes.
problem.
But if everyone thinks that way and no one puts the obvious thing, then you maybe don't get the best clue. And so, sometimes it's worth the risk. It depends.
I'll just-
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So Louis, keep your eyes closed. Is everyone ready to share? Yeah, it looks like we are. So what we're going to do is just hold up the images so we can see what our clues are. And if we have any crossovers, you're not allowed to show that clue. So maybe get as close to the camera as you can, and I'll take a look at these two here. Okay. Okay, we've got it.
I did. Put
Okay.
I changed it.
Nice. That's good. Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yes. I'm seeing all different ones. Marcy, what do you got?
I don't have anything.
No, okay. Then I think we have all the clues. I saw 6 different words. So we're going to do the same thing. If you can hold up, Louis, you've got brilliant vision. I know you can see really far away.
You can look on the screen
Okay
too
for you
if
to
you
look?
want.
You can look. Oh,
If
okay.
it's-
Yeah,
Is that easier?
it might be easier. So Jen, show your clue.
So
Marlo,
Jen's
show your
clue,
clue.
Lucifer, horns. Let me see some clues on the screen. Brimstone, dare, Satan, hell, devil.
Yay! Good job. And there is this byproduct of playing this game that when you get it, every time everyone goes, yay! You cheer. There's so much camaraderie. There's so much excitement, and there's so much engagement. You're responsible for your own clue, but you have to be thinking about what others are doing.
Who was it that did dare? Who did dare?
That was really clever.
Emily, yeah.
That's the
That
one
was me.
for me. I was thinking devil, but then when I saw dare, I went, it's for sure devil. So that was a great clue. Thank you for that one.
Yeah, definitely.
So what was it like giving clues? What was like your strategy, or what were you thinking? I know Jen mentioned, I don't want to do something that's like so obvious.
I did anyway.
But see, it worked really well,
I
right?
think Marlo and I was like,
I
yeah, we're
wrote
doing the same.
Lucifer
Yeah.
was the one I actually erased, so we would have been out of
Yep.
that. thing.
Yeah.
I actually thought of horns initially too, but I'm like, I think someone else will put horns. Usually when I play games like this, though, the thing I come up with different is what someone else picks. So I assume. But-
Yeah.
Struck by how nobody had the same answer. Like that's
I
shocking.
was too. You know what I'd like to do? Maybe try it again and see if we might have something like that. I'm glad Louis went first. We'll do just one more round, and if someone again brave enough that wants to be the guesser, he doesn't have to be here, and we could give it one more roll. And I'll talk about how I have changed this game to modify it to my literature classroom, which is my second implementation.
Nice. I'll guess if you want.
Fantastic. Well, here's the deal. You don't need to watch until we say look,
Okay.
but you are going to be responsible for picking a number 1 to 5.
Okay. 4.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be good. Okay. So Heidi, check out for just a minute, but make sure you can hear us so we can bring you back in. Okay, so I'm going to show this card to everybody. So, oh, whoops, it's 4. Can you see you saw? Okay.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. 4.
I can't see
Yeah.
it.
You still can't see it?
No, I'm blind.
Okay,
I think I can see it now.
you think so? Okay. Everyone's got the words, so now think. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Yeah, but see,
This
here's,
game always
but-
makes me
Second
overthink.
guess
Figure out if
yourself.
the word's hyphenated or not.
I
I'm not doing it. I think it might be. I like to hyphenate words that aren't hyphenated though. So.
I get a lot of, that's probably the first thing they want to do is just make it 2 words and then put a hyphen in between them. And the other thing I see that is, I don't even think they think it, but for example, one word just this week, I did this in 103, and the word was king, and they wrote down the word kingdom. And so I had to say, no,
Right.
make a synonym for that word and erase that, because you can't put the actual word in there,
Yeah.
but they weren't even seeing that was like the word. So I think part of the word too is the second biggest mistake as well. Do we have some clues ready to go? Is everyone ready? Okay, I'm seeing some head shakes. Yes. Okay, so eyes still closed. And let's share our cards with each other. Okay. It looks like, oh, Emily and Louis have to put theirs down. And then what's Kyle's? What's yours?
Oh, Kyle's is
Oh.
good.
Oh,
You
yes.
wanna see it
Okay,
on
good. So we
Yeah.
had two that had to go face down, but we still have some clues for you, Heidi. So you can rejoin the group and you are going to get some clues here. So feel free. I always like to say out loud the words that you see because it might actually help jog some thoughts and connections. So you are looking at, here's
Can you,
Marlowe's,
well, I don't,
maybe.
it's- if the owl comes
there it
to me,
is.
there it is. Can you see it?
Emergency, is that what it said? Okay,
And then Jen,
Mine's police.
police.
okay.
And then what else do we have?
Well, mine's either gonna be really helpful or really bad. So,
Okay, so we have Marcy's is tornado,
Kyle's a
Rachel?
Starbucks.
Starbucks, and then Rachel is song.
Huh. Tragedy?
Ooh, good guess. So if you had the one that Louis had, then
Lewis
Emily
and
had,
Emily, yeah.
would ambulance help out any?
Still tragic.
It still sounds like tragedy. to me.
Yeah, I don't, and did somebody say earthquake or?
I had tornado.
Tornado.
Tornado, yeah. What about the Starbucks clue? That one seems out of place. Whenever there's an out of place clue, I start to think, what is that indicating? So Starbucks is really interesting. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of maybe one of those like break-in moments.
That's what
And-
popped in my head when I saw
Yeah.
the word.
And song,
I
yeah.
almost did song, but songs could be tragic.
I know song, that's what made me think, isn't there like a Bee Gees song or something that's called Tragedy? That's
Tragedy.
where my mind went.
So if you took Starbucks and song away, would that help?
No.
No, I don't know. So if you think about those two together, maybe siren. So siren is your word, and we know siren song, the siren, which is the Starbucks logo, and then emergency and ambulance. All of those were fitting in with that. But
Okay.
that was a really tough word.
It was.
So
I'm from the
I just
Midwest.
learned
I
that.
think of tornado sirens.
Oh, yeah, because I didn't know that siren was the logo. I know the Starbucks logo, but I know it's called a siren, so that's my bad.
Air raid.
Air raid.
Oh.
I think
Oh,
compound
so.
word.
Oh.
Isn't that just,
I
isn't that
don't-
just
I
a?
don't know.
I
Yeah,
think you're, oh, maybe it's not.
I almost did song, which would have also gotten me knocked out.
Yeah.
You were
bad at
gonna,
this
you were
game.
gonna, no, but I think we saw with that second one, maybe with a more challenging word, we might have the crossover, the duplicates, but we also saw that it doesn't always lead to that successful guess, but it's really, do you kind of see all those skills that it works and how engaging it is? I mean, we are all working, we're all trying together, but there is that individual responsibility to write your word and to really think it through. I find this game to be super, super successful with students. They enjoy it quite a bit. So how do I use it in lit class is I go to my syllabus schedule and I find, I think I had a 55 or 60 texts that we read in class. And I use this as a midterm and or final review. And I print out every single poem, story, and play that we've read. So they're all on these little bitty teeny sheets of paper, and I have everybody in a group. I put them in groups of 7, and I have them go through each one of these and fold it in half and talk through it. Oh, what was Story of an Hour again? Who was in that? What happened in this thing? Oh, this was written by so-and-so, and they go through all of them. So you give them about 20 minutes to just go over the content again. And then these become the cards that you have for the just one. And so instead of guessing, or picking 1 through 5, you just, reach in and grab one of these, show it to everybody, wait for everyone to give you their one-word clue. And what I found is it just activates those details that they remember from the particular text. And it asks them to recall not dates, not necessarily authors, not even the names of the characters, but the stuff that they remember. It's this memory recall in such a creative way. And I've done it twice now, and I've got 2 sections of my Lit 175 that is coming up at the end of this semester. And I'm just so excited to see this work again. They just light up. So active engaged students, memory recall, thoughtful consideration of the text. That's what I'm going for, is something that is a little bit deeper and longer lasting than simply just, I know all the statistics and the details. I remember taking an art history class in my bachelor's, and all we did every week was date, name, period, and I don't really remember anything about those things. Like, it's been years, but I also just don't feel like I had like this, I don't know, substantial and meaningful connection to those particular texts. They're super creative when they start thinking about, and it's just one word, so they always want to do more than one, but like just one word. They socialize in a way that you don't necessarily see them socialize when they're just sitting in their rows and they're just having, discussion, large group discussion. So when I put them in their small groups for this, there's just so much there that I can't even necessarily facilitate as an instructor. And again, that personal responsibility, you start to feel maybe like you're not helping your team out as well if you're not remembering all this stuff, and it kind of helps you realize, oh, maybe I need to be reading better, I need to be paying more attention to some of these details, or I need to, actually care about this in not just this regurgitation way. So that creativity and that personal responsibility is still there. I think that both of these ways that I use Just One work really well. And I'm so glad I got to share it with you. And you all did so well in the game. Really good job. Does anybody have any, quick questions or, anything that you want to ask me before we head on to Louis and check out the way he uses games in the classroom?
I was just wondering, is this like, would you do it for the whole class period? Like, so they start with their 20-minute thing and then the rest of the class, they're doing the game?
I found that we barely touched the 60 in our first session. And I had I set aside an hour the first time because I had one of those seminar blocks for my class last semester. And I didn't anticipate the 20 minutes of them going through this. And so it ate into my idea of playtime. So what I did was I brought it up later and we were able to play for another half an hour. Okay. So it depends on how much time you want to spend. At a certain point, they start to just get fatigued with one activity. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say necessarily do too much, but I have planned for one of my 1 hour and 15-minute classes. So 20 minutes to do the review and then the rest of the time to play. And I like at the end always to stop and talk to them about, how did you experience this game? What happened when you were the guesser? What happened when you were the clue giver? What were those roles like? And I always am just constantly like airplaning around from group to group to group the whole time it's happening. So I can kind of answer questions and make sure that works. But yes, I would set aside that time. And when I do the base game, I spend maybe 35 or 40 minutes because that session is a 50-minute class and it takes time to teach it. And I also want to do that cap at the end to make sure that they're leaving knowing why we played it and how they can apply it to their writing. So it kind of, shrinks a little bit, but I think that the original Just One is a lot more straightforward than the literature Just One. Yeah, any other questions? Awesome. Louis, are you ready to share?
Is iPhone a person? Hi, everyone. I'm Louis Sylvester. Just like Kimberly, I like to use games in the classroom, and I have a few reasons why I think that bringing gaming into a classroom is important. The biggest reason is I have noticed over my last 20 years of teaching that students have gotten more and more hesitant to fail. They've become a little slower to raise their hand if I ask a question. There just seems to be this tendency to not want to risk the possibility that they might be wrong about something, or that they might do something in the wrong way. And when you bring games in and say, hey, we're going to play this game where we're going to do whatever it is, my experience is that pressure to prove to the teacher that I'm smart and capable and that I understand what we're doing kind of evaporates, and suddenly it's just like, oh, we're going to play a game. And don't get me wrong, people still feel some pressure with games, but it's a different level of importance, where students know if I don't do as well, it doesn't necessarily reflect on my career or my education or whatever. So I find that it's a tricky way to lower the stakes and get people to maybe open up a little bit. The other thing that I find to be really important with gaming is, well, for my classes, I teach creative writing, I teach screenwriting, and these classes are asking students to open up and be creative and to come up with ideas and stories and so forth. And there's nothing that can be more difficult than when someone points at you and says, come up with a story. You know, you just go, oh, I don't know how to do that. And I've spent years and years giving students kind of theory on how to come up with stories. Well, you need an interesting character that has desires and goals, and then you need someone else, an antagonist of some sort that gets in the way of those goals, and that creates conflict, and this conflict is plot. And I give them all these terms and I give them this theory, and then I say, now create a story. And they just stare at me, unclear on how to implement all of that theory. So what I've started to do is bring a game into the classroom, into my creative writing classrooms. I actually have 3 or 4 games here, but because of time, I'm going to just focus on 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which is a solitaire. Oh yeah, you can hold that up to the camera. Maybe the other one. Yeah. This is a book. It's just a pretty little book. It says 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. There it goes. Boy, that's just moving all over. It's literally a book that has pages and a nice bookmarks in the bottom. It's technically a role-playing game for one person. And if you don't know what role-playing games are, these are games where you sit around a table with your friends and you cooperatively create stories. At least that's what they are on the surface. I grew up playing a role-playing game called Dungeons and Dragons, and I think role-playing games serve a purpose that maybe was never expected or intended at first. Because I was very shy and awkward as a kid. I had trouble talking to new people, strangers. I kept quiet and kept to myself until I got to know you. And then I became a chatterbox. And that's the person you all know now as the chatterbox. But it was very difficult for me to break out of the shell and get past that first hurdle. And I discovered that when I would play Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game, because I was taking on the role of someone else, you know, of a dwarf fighter or whatever, and I wasn't being me, I was being Gimli or whatever. I could experiment and try things. I could say things that maybe Louis didn't dare say or know how to say. If we had to go and talk to the prince about, you know, the treasure that's been stolen by a dragon, I could try different approaches with the prince and say, well, Your Highness, what about this? What about that? And I kind of was able to practice social skills. without realizing it, I was able to practice social skills. And I honestly think that that low stakes environment is what's allowed me today to stand in front of a classroom and feel very confident and outgoing and say, hey, everybody, we're all on the same team. We're all going to work together. So I'm a big fan of role-playing games because of the ability to open up social doors and so forth. Now, when it comes to creative writing, I picked this solitaire game because I wanted my students to kind of practice low stakes, the things that I was asking them to do. Create an interesting character, create some antagonism, create some conflict. And so what I would like to do for the next 10 to 15 minutes is walk all of you through a few prompts and see if we can kind of start to create a story, characters and plots and so forth. Oh, some of you are like, why did I tune in? Well, guess what? You get to do this with me. So I want everyone to get a piece of paper. Everyone get a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. Remember, it's all low stakes. There is no wrong. You're not getting graded on this. You may not even share it with me if you don't want to. I'll ask for some of you to volunteer some things, but you don't have to. All right. Tell me when everyone's ready. Are we all ready on Zoom? We're feeling pretty good. You got a paper and pencil? Okay. So we're going to create a vampire story. And the way we're going to start is you're going to start with your vampire. This is your main character. This is the person who's going to be the protagonist of your story. So I want you to come up with your character before they were turned. So this is your character as a normal person, okay? And because the game's called 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, I want you to go into the past. Now you can go longer than 1,000 years. You could go 10,000 years. I don't know. You could go to the 1960s or to 1061. I don't, anytime. But I want you to give me a name, a location, and a time. And I want you to write it in first person. So I am, put down a name. I was born in, put down a location, and think big, think the world, ancient Rome or China or Texas. Okay, so you just write down a name. Don't worry too much. You can change the name. Put down a location, put down a time. If you haven't got the time doesn't have to be super specific. You might just say 7th century,
We don't have to go back to 1,000 years.
Doesn't have to be 1,000 years. It could be 200 years. It could be 20 years if you really want to. I've had a student go back to the Stone Age. I had a student who made a pirate, and this is the last thing. What's your occupation? What is this character's occupation? Think of, and it could be anything. They could be a beggar on the street. They could be a royal prince or princess. They could be, I don't know, they could be a scout for the king's army. You just think of an interesting occupation, something that might be interesting to you. And if you're not sure if that occupation exists in the time and place that you've chosen, that's okay too. Just put down whatever first comes to mind. Just a quick sentence. My name is, I was born or I lived in during this time, and this is my job. Okay? I'll give you a second.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting this mixed up with the Satan. This is vampire, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, this is vampire.
Okay.
All right, do we have any volunteers to tell me who their character is so far?
I'll go.
Yeah, Kyle, let's hear who you've got.
All right, I am Rupert Biggerstaff, born in 1970 in Ventura, California. It takes place in the mid 80s. I work at Radio Shack, focusing on Walkman repairs.
Fantastic. That's fantastic.
I love that. And I love that you just went back to a time period that you can kind of grasp, right? That's fantastic. I would ask you to underline the location and time on yours, and probably all of you will. Here's what I would tell my students to do. Go research that location and time. When I played this, I chose Italy, Rome, in the 7th century. I don't know anything about Italy in the 7th century. But when I went to Wikipedia, I looked a few things up. I looked up common names. I realized the name that I'd come up with didn't work, so I changed the name. Wikipedia has like interesting things that happened in the 7th century in Italy. And I went down the list and I found in like the year 668 or whatever, the Emperor Constantine from Constantinople visited Italy. He visited Rome for 12 days and stole all the gold because he was like the Pope, head of the church, but he was moving the church out of Rome. So he showed up and gathered all the gold and then left. I thought that was an interesting little fact. And so I kind of set my story during that time period. And so I think this is something that can work also for getting your students to explore history, getting your students to kind of start asking questions about things that have happened in the past. So with yours, Kyle, I'd be interested to know exactly what was happening in the 1980s. Maybe get on Wikipedia and look at some newspapers or whatever else and say, oh yeah, that's right, the shuttle exploded or whatever, right? Like just things to kind of refresh your memory to that time period. Anyone else have one they want to share?
Sure. I am Selena Blumenthal, and I was born in Sevilla, Spain in 1970. Dictatorship, right? Good old Franco days. And I am a hairdresser.
Oh, interesting. Fantastic. See, this is so fun. And already I'm starting to see, just from these two examples, possibilities for story direction, you know? So 5 minutes ago, this character didn't exist, right? They weren't a person, but just by asking for a name, a place, a time, and an occupation, you've already kind of solidified somebody. Now, the next thing I'm going to ask you is to tell me, just in one sentence, a very close friend or family member to this character. Just tell me a close friend or family member and just their relationship. How are they connected to you? Name and relationship. Could be a mentor, doesn't have to be related. Did you find a good one?
Yeah. Don't play.
I can't see. I can't see yours. Okay, we all taken a few seconds, right? What you'll notice, by the way, when you play with these prompts is that your first few things you'll write down, you'll just write a quick phrase or sentence. Pretty soon you'll be writing out paragraphs because they'll start to do things. They'll start to come into form. Okay, for your second character, let's number that first person with a little 1. Put a 1 in front of them so that you remember they're your character number 1. For number 2, who is a person in your life that is an antagonist, an enemy, someone who doesn't like you? Maybe there's an old aunt who never cared for you or wants your fortune. Maybe there's a coworker who wants to get you fired. Who knows? But there's someone in your life that they're against you. Notice we haven't mentioned vampires at all. No vampires yet. We're just figuring out people in your life. So a name and why they don't like you or how they're trying to get you. And put a 2 next to that one when you're finished. Then for your third one, I want you to put somebody that your character loves. They could be a lover, they could just be somebody that's very important to them, but somebody that your character loves. Now, this isn't the same as the ally from earlier, you know, the family member that cares. This is somebody that is emotionally very important to your character. Tell me about them just a little bit. Who's this person that they love? And to quickly answer your secret, the question you're not asking, can it be their dog? Of course it can be their dog.
Thank God. I was gonna have to cross that out. if you said
Was yours
no.
a dog?
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so at this point, you've got a character. You've got 3 people that matter to that character. Now I want you to write down 3 things that matter to the character. These can be objects, tokens, like a diary or a watch that a dad gave them. It could be property. It could be the castle on the hill or you know, a nice car. So 3 things that 3 material objects that they care about. How we doing? We feeling all right? Now, at this point, believe it or not, you've created a character with some backstory. You've created a character that lives in the world, that interacts with people, that has things that matter to that character. Now, we're going to develop this a little bit further. Normally, I would have you take one of your, well, actually, we might do this, but I only want a short phrase because we don't have time to go into a paragraph. I want you to take one of your characters, 1, 2, or 3, and one of your objects, 1, 2, or 3, and just in a quick sentence or 2, tell me how that character and that object are connected. Did the character steal the object? Did they give you the object? Did they destroy the object? Did they, how is the character and that object connected? I can see some of you just writing away. This is great. This is what I want from my students. But to see, the funny thing is, when I ask my students to create a character and give them some interesting backstory, they stare at me. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to start. I didn't ask you to create a character with interesting backstory, and yet you've all done it in the last 10 minutes out of nowhere. Some of you have Radio Shack employees. Some have hairdressers in Spain. I'd love to hear some about your characters. Would someone volunteer to tell me about the character and the object, what they did there?
Yeah.
Okay, Kimberly, go ahead.
So my name is Gimli. So I was born and raised in New Zealand in 1743, and I wrangled creatures. So I had have a trainer mentor in wrangling whose name is Rorschach. And Rorschach and I were stranded on her shipping vessel for 10 nights, nearly, counted all but dead, dehydrated until we made it back to shore. And I now own that shipping vessel.
Oh, did she die?
She's not dead.
She's not dead, but she's like, I'm done with this life.
No, she says it's okay that I have it now.
Oh, okay.
It was a gift after training and learning all the wrangling creature things. I needed to start wrangling sea creatures too, not just land creatures.
Fantastic, fantastic. So this is what's fascinating to me. Suddenly there's questions that I would have for you. I'd be like, well, what exactly happened on this 10-day thing? You almost said cannibalism. I heard it. Did you almost have to resort to?
We did not have to resort to that. We love each other.
You love, oh, is that?
This is the person, that I love.
That you love.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And they've decided to share this boat with you?
Yes.
Fantastic. So I feel like there's a story there. Now, when I started asking you to write all this stuff down, I kind of dangled a vampire story in front of your face with the idea that this character would eventually get bit by a vampire, become a vampire, and then go and have all these adventures. And as you go through the book, there are prompts that will say things like, what happened when you got bit? Who bit you? What caused you to pick one of your characters and in your vampiric hunger, you destroy one of them or kill one of them? What happened? Who was it? And so there's all these prompts that kind of move the story in different directions, often in directions you're not hoping to go. And the whole book is full of random prompts. So you literally roll a die, go to the next prompt, and it asks you a question. How did this work out? And then you write your answer to it. But I've discovered with my writing class, I don't need to even get into the prompts too much. Once they start creating their character, you can just start saying, well, where does this story go? I've had characters or students whose characters never even became vampires. They didn't need to. In fact, the whole vampire thing is just kind of a pretext to get you thinking outside of certain boxes, right? But once you start going, if your character is interesting enough, if they want things, if they have a cool enough enemy, right? Suddenly there are opportunities for stories to be told. And what I've learned with my students is by asking these prompts and not grading them. I don't know what's on your paper, whatever you wrote on your various papers. You may hate what you've done. You might go, this doesn't work at all, and you'll crumple it and throw it away. But what I've discovered is failure is so important to success. And the only way you can fail at writing a story is to actually write something down. But what I'm seeing with students is they won't make that first risk because they're afraid if I write a story and it stinks, then I'm a bad writer and I should just stop. So they're afraid to even take that first step. But when it's a game, they'll write things down. And when I say, oh, I'm not going to look at it, this is your story, they can then look at it and go, you know what? This name doesn't work for the time period. I'm going to go do some research and change the name. And actually, I've decided I don't like this character in my story, so I'm going to cross them out and do something else. But they have a physical thing that they can work with. And a physical thing can be adjusted. It can be built upon. Theoretical ideas never go anywhere. It's the difference between writing an essay and saying, I've got an essay in mind. I have some thoughts about, politics or whatever, and never putting it on paper. It's nothing. And a lot of us avoid this first step of failure because we're so afraid of failing. But the funny thing is, all of you just created a character. You all just took my class and learned something, and you can now do it without me. You can go home and say, okay, I want to write a story. I have no ideas. What name do I start with? What time do I start with? What occupation? Who's a friend? Who's a lover? Who's an enemy? What kind of things does this person have? And before you know it, just by asking certain questions, you can then just start saying, well, what did the enemy do to maybe to my lover? What did the enemy do to my lover to, hurt me? And then you ask that question and you write a paragraph. And before you know it, a story will literally blossom in front of you. That's all I've got time for as far as vampire. Feel free to keep exploring with your character if you're into that. And if you're not into writing stories, what I would recommend is looking at whatever your classroom is or whatever your job is where you need students to play, and ask yourself, well, what am I really trying to get them to do? What are they afraid of failing? And how can I get them to play through the failure so that they get to the other side and they say, oh, maybe I didn't make the best character story in the world, but I've tried it now. I know I can do it. Maybe I can go back and try again and be that much better the next time. So that's why I use 1,000-Year Vampire in my writing classes. All right, any last thoughts, Kim?
Oh, I just want to second the just the low stakes play. I think that's such an important aspect, and I know that's something I see, and with Just One even, and with all the other games that I bring in, there's just this moment of relaxation of like, oh, I can just fall into something, and yeah, I can have a good time. Definitely be working on these skills, but also I'm not being judged, I'm not being graded, and there's just this freedom to explore and to be creative in a way that maybe not other exercises do. And so, yeah, I wholly second that. And research as well. I had to go on my phone and check there are no kangaroos in New Zealand. So I had to change it to wallabies, like it's just so exciting. And now I'm probably going to remember that fact just because we did this exercise. And that's just so exciting.
I will say when I played 1,000-Year-Old Vampire just by myself, my little sentences soon became paragraphs and things just started to happen. And pretty soon I had about 10 pages of a story about this vampire guy in the 7th century of Italy. And I learned all about Constantinople, and I learned about the different regions of Northern Italy. Just because I wanted to answer the question, well, oh, he flees Rome. Where does he go? I don't know, Wikipedia. And it became eye-opening just how much storytelling opportunities there were in our own past. I would love to see what ends up happening to Kyle's Radio Shack man at the end of the day.
I have a lot of good stuff, so you should come by.
I might come by. And actually, like Emily and Heidi, and Marcy, we didn't get to hear from your stories, but hopefully you discovered that you're more creative than you think. And it's because it's low stakes. Knowing that nobody has to see it, you just go, I guess New Zealand, and you just write down, like you don't feel like, oh, if I make the wrong choice, I'm going to be put down. And those little opportunities where you just make a fun choice can really open up creativity. And Ken Robinson, who has done some TED Talks, he's an educated guy that's involved in education and stuff. He does a lot of TED Talks. He says, you cannot be creative if you're not prepared to fail. That's a quote from his 2006, I want to say, TED Talk. I think this is true. I think that our education system in many ways has told students that failure is the worst thing that they can do, that making a bad choice or standing out as having said something wrong or not understanding something is the worst thing they can do. And because failure is so dangerous in their mind, we, the educators, have shut down their creative side. And I think more than ever, we need to see creativity in this new generation and in the students. And they need to know it's okay to fail on a small scale so that when they become the leaders of the world, they'll know the process and they won't make the mistakes that we see being made by leaders right now, all the time. So I think there's some real world application for this process of gaming before we actually engage in the real thing, whatever that means.
One more thing I just wanted to share, I forgot, and I'm glad we've been talking about it. When we play games, I'm always thinking about how I can adjust or apply or bring that game into my classroom. And so I wanted to just show, I have a YouTube channel where I have a Board Games in the Classroom Professor Kim series. Now, does this
Just hit the share screen.
Oh, okay, so share.
And then,
This
yeah,
one?
yep,
Okay,
and then share.
okay. So here's my, it's called Tabletop Tolson. And when you're on this
Can they
page,
see it?
yeah, you
Looks
go
like
to
this.
playlists and you'll see
what
Board
I
Games
see.
in the Classroom view playlist. And what I've done here, I've got 22 videos. Can everyone still hear me? Yeah, okay.
Can you hear?
So-
Yeah.
When you come down through here, I have some longer ones that walk through both the student and the teacher perspective, how to prepare the lesson, and then how students can just watch the video and learn the game. And then some of my more recent ones, if you scroll kind of further down here, are my kind of 5-minute tutorials. And so what I like to do is just teach a game, but when I'm learning a new game, I always say, oh, this is really great because it works this, this, and this, and I could bring it in for this particular exercise when it comes to research, when it comes to using, computers and, internet literacy and information literacy, or this is about communication. And so if you want to, if you find it, inspiring, go and check out some of the videos that I've got there. And I've kind of got a whole folder there because I just want to share all the stuff that I'm doing and all the games that I've used in the classroom in the past. And so I'm just constantly adding new videos there, and hopefully it'll just kind of be this nice resource for a lot of instructors. I would say secondary, post-secondary, pretty much adult age.
And I would like to add that just because I teach creative writing, so I've looked for games that help me with that. And Kim teaches literature and composition, so she's looked for games that work with that. Her channel doesn't just include those two topics, and there are all sorts of games, all sorts of categories, whether it's science,
Geography,
learning,
science,
geography. Communications is huge in games. So I know
Yeah.
Kyle and Marcy are both comm teachers. And so there's a ton of games where skills that you're trying to get your students to practice are available. And so Emily, I'm not sure what you're looking for with games, but and you too, Heidi, if there's some specific topic or skill that you're hoping to bring into your workspace, talk to me or Kim, send us an email. We'd be happy to give you some recommendations and some ideas on games you could use.
Definitely. I think a lot of the writing and vocabulary are really helpful for language learning and stuff. So I'll definitely be using this.
Oh, good, good.
Well, thank you both. This has been such a fun session, and I think you've given us lots of ideas. And thank you everyone for being here today. I'm about to end the recording and the Zoom call.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Appreciate it.